Hello and welcome to Young Blossom 25 Future Leaders Revealed. I'm Inga and with me is my beautiful co-host Vayus. And joining us today, Ole Fussinger. Ole studied at Otto Bensheim School of Management, one of Germany's leading business schools. And along the way, he spent also some time in organizations like Bain, Adidas, Telekom, SAP, FC Bayern, which is going to be the favorite of Vayus. That's why he agreed to have you here in the first place. And also Allianz Global Investors, where you got to know and understand the business side of things. I believe you're currently exploring what you're going to do with your masters, and you're flirting with international law, if that's correct. And when I asked you in our pre-conversation, how do you determine what to choose from all the opportunities that are out there? You said you need to like it. You need to be able to endure it along some pressure, and you need to have talent for it. If those three are aligned, you're going to enjoy it for a very long time. I want to double click on that because I found it quite fascinating how to make choices. While you're assessing it, you are quite busy. Where your career is going to go, let's see. But as you're doing all of that, you also founded with a friend of yours an AI consultancy firm that focuses on simplification and voice AI agents. Fascinating. And we're curious to hear also more about it. And in the light of supporting future generation, you're also becoming the youngest tutor at the Chamber of Crafts. I don't know how to translate it in English, in the attempt to make the craftsmanship more attractive as a career choice. I think that is very important considering everything that is going on. And in case that was not enough, you just have launched as lead editor and founder Capital Architecture. So we want to double click on that as well. We're super happy to have you on board. Super excited to enter into that conversation and hear a lot more about you. You're 24 years old. I hope I can disclose the age. You are the generation we like to talk a lot about, but actually we would like to talk with you. So very warm welcome. Did I miss something? Do you want to add something? Where do you live? What do you like to do maybe in your free time? How many kids do you have? How many dogs?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to talking to you. Yeah, I guess you touched upon all of the points. If you're reading down this long list, I feel like I should maybe focus on something a bit more or try to have some more ideas that I can spend my time on. So in my free time, I'm not active as a player, but I'm trying to take over the commercial side of my hometown basketball club. And I do a lot of running. So that's I would say, more human things to do as a 24-year-old besides publishing articles on a blog. So so that's everything, and I guess you've touched on all of the points that we talked about.
We haven't talked about running in our pre-conversation, so we need to pick this up at a later point because Vayus is gonna die out of boredom if we start talking running. Tell us a little bit before we dive in. Actually, I had a conversation this week with a professor, and she's into leadership. She was telling me that every semester when she launches a new course, at the beginning of the semester, she is asking the 60 people who is considering themselves a leader. And the second question she's asking, who would like to become a leader? And when she was telling that story, and I will not tell you the outcome of it, I was like, we actually never asked that question. And the podcast is called Future Leaders Revealed. So Ole, you're the first one we're going to ask that question. And moving forward, do you consider yourself a leader?
That's actually a hard question. I would say I try to become a leader, but I'm not clearly there yet. So I feel like to lead, you need a team, and there's at the moment not a real team. So I have my co-founder, I have some people that I work with and collaborate with for capital architecture. But I would say that I'm not yet at least the leader that I'm trying to envision myself. So the question that you asked secondly, if I want to be a leader, that's a clear yes. I want to become a leader and I want to lead. I always try to envision it for myself at the intersection of AI, option and automation, small and medium-sized companies, something with sustainability, or at least in the legal sphere. So that's what the clear goal is. And for this, I'm trying to work hard and try to find a lot of creative ideas to fail fast and learn from it.
Amazing. Bios.
Great. And, I couldn't imagine a better start to the discussion. A very warm welcome from my side. It's fascinating, first of all, that you find free time to do things for yourself after so many things. I think I haven't done all the things that Inga listed out in my entire life, and I'm over 40. So well done to start with. Secondly, we're eager also to hear your thoughts on FC Bayern München. So it's a big passion from my side. Inga doesn't like so much, but anyways, to keep the ball rolling, we are very much interested to understand a little bit how you see Gen Z. And the first thing that pops into my mind is to have your view on what the current challenges are for the younger generation entering workforce.
So I would reference Pip Klöckner from the OMR speech that he had, I guess, last week. I would say it's the economy that is really hindering. I'm not quite sure if this is an English word, but it's biggest problem that my generation is currently facing in terms of getting into the job market. And I feel like that's the whole story told, because besides from not having the greatest economy at the moment, we have all the tools that are needed in the workspace. We are super creative. We are trying to think outside the box. I feel like that a lot of us are trying to work hard, although we don't have this massive road ahead of us that is saying, okay, you're clearly going to win in life. You're going to have a better life than your parents had. Although all of these roadblocks are out there, I feel like it's just the economy that needs to get some movement again, and then we will have like great careers and will have great impacts, because this is maybe what distinguishes us from previous generations, that we are trying to be more impactful. I mean, the rest is, I guess, like always, the older generations say that we are not working hard enough. But I can clearly say that my generation is like not working hard.
And just out of curiosity, of course, the economy has its ups, its downs, it runs in cycles, but there are many things that shape career choices of Gen Z. Absence of job security for wealth building. What is it that makes this generation so special, if we consider it special in terms of how they build their career?
I would say that is maybe purpose, but I have a hard time to say we are that one generation, because I feel like we're the first generation that is like super differentiated in terms of how they live their life and what they prioritize. So there are clearly the people that say, okay, I want to work hard, I want to have an impact in terms of a career. There are also friends of mine that say, okay, I don't want to live for work, I want to live and prioritize living. And then there are a lot of people that I know that try to have an impact in like an organization or in an initiative that they're trying to build. So I feel like that we are a generation that is hard to say you're one generation. I mean, we clearly have things in common, but we are maybe also the first generation that, because of social media and the bubbles that are forming in there, is like, okay, we are only seeing what our peer group is doing. So we are maybe also one generation that is, if we're in one direction, doing that like 110%, but not because we want to do it, but because we are like pushed in that direction via social media, maybe.
Inga?
I want to double click a little bit on, as part of your introduction, I said all these many things. And when we had a chat, when we met before recording, I said, well, it's quite impressive that you're doing all these things. And your response was, well, it is also a little bit a necessity. It is not so much a choice, it is a necessity. Can you talk to us a little bit about the necessity piece?
Yeah, so first of all, as a small disclaimer, it's potentially also driven by my anxieties that I'm having in terms of, okay, this AI is really powerful and is basically able to do all of the jobs that I'm currently doing and that I did. So that is why I always try to build like a strong fundament and maybe have a lot of things that I can do. And if I feel like something is completely done by AI, I have at least 3 to 5 more things that I can do. That's just my belief and what I try to do. The second is that I'm at a point where I feel like trying out and having the experience in trying out new things is also a skill that is really helping me in maybe a later career state when there is maybe a new technology coming up, when there is a new challenge that I need, that I have. So it's more or less that I feel like we don't know where AI is going. So I try to have like a lot of things that I could potentially do if AI is taking a few over. And even though if everything of the things that I'm currently doing is taken over by AI, I have at least the skill of trying out, being creative in what I can do, and basically always have the chance to build up on the mistakes that I maybe made in trying new things out. And that's what I meant when I said that it's not like nice to have, that it's a must have, but that's just for me speaking. And I feel like there are also good points to say you should focus on one thing purely and be like top 1% in it, because AI can never be in the 99.9 percentile because it's just a statistical model. So those are the two major drivers that I would say can lead to either doing one thing to the maximum. There is also then the personal things that come to it. I'm not the person that can do one thing 110% 24/7 because I need to try out different things. And then I try to take what I can do good to make it like a habit and to make it like to the perfection. So trying out things in perfection is maybe also a skill that can be helpful in a technology that is not really at a point where we really know where it's heading.
And in terms of career choice or path, have you ever considered, because you actually worked in really big organizations, so you spend some time and you understand what it means to be part of a big organization. Was that in your scope to go and join a big organization and have a very classic that exists, Korean corporate? How are you thinking about it?
I would say I'm doing all of these things because I maybe will join one of those big organizations. And when I join them, I have the skill to figure out what I can do good, what I can try out, and where you maybe just focus on one thing and do this 110%. So I would say for all of the organizations that I've worked, I could consider myself working in. For example, I talked to an ex-colleague of mine at Telecom today, because I'm super interested in how Telecom is heading, and because I feel like that, for example, Telecom is a great company that a lot of people should have more on their list when they look for like employees. I feel like that trainee programs, for example, are a super way to try yourself out, and that is something that is on my list. So there's not a next universe or next life where I might be joining one of those big corporations. There's clearly a path for me inside of those organizations, because although we all have this view on big corporate, I feel like there are a lot of things that are working good, that are really great about them. If we choose the right organizations for ourselves, that has the right things for us to develop into.
And what would you consider great about corporate?
So you have, if you're into clear structures and if you're into clear paths, what in a world that is really not giving you the pathway in one direction, where we're not feeling like, okay, everything is going to be so much better in 10 years. If you're looking into the news, we have wars all over the place. Then you have these big organizations that are, for example, like Telekom, Adidas, SAP, Allianz, or even FC Bayern München, that are giving you a sense of security, and inside of the security you can develop your skills. So as an example of Deutsche Telekom, as you see, I'm a big fan of how they're recruiting, and I'm not getting paid by them. But for example, at Deutsche Telekom, they have the telecom strategy consulting, like an in-house consultancy where you learn all of the skill set that a great consultant needs to have. And then you're basically working on projects inside of the telecom, you're getting trained, and then you can find yourself a position. So at Bain, it would call build your own Bain. It's basically also at the telecom that you can build your own, career there. All of the corporates that I've stayed at have like those perks in terms of trainee programs, great leadership, smart people that working there. That is maybe also something, I'm not quite sure if we're going to talk about it, but that makes me really looking forward to the European companies, because there are a lot of smart people working in those companies that are really have seen a lot and are trying to work for great Europe.
Sorry, Vice, go ahead.
Yes, so that's really interesting to hear. And myself being in corporate for almost 10 years now, there are structures which can give you the opportunity to learn and learn fast. Because I always keep saying also in my interviews, one of the things you gain with the current organization I am, but in general in corporate, is the fact that you get the chance to work with people who are like-minded, smart, and provide the opportunity for you to connect, gain a different perspective so that you can incorporate it within your own system. I'm very much eager to understand how this works from the university perspective, because it's very clearly that you place a lot of emphasis on your own education, on what you learn. So I would like to understand, how does learning and development need to evolve from a university perspective so as to keep up with societal, technological evolution?
Well, that's a tough one, because I'm not in uni, at least for business administration at the moment. So I will start my master's in September. So I studied basically in the start of an NIH. So when starting at university, there was no ChatGPT. So, but what I feel like I enjoyed the most was like classes where you have to talk to the professor. So I would now say that those are the most American classes that I had, but where you really are not listening and watching on slides, that you really having to think, that there are questions, that there are cases that you work in the class, and where you basically get pushed out of your comfort zone, because you learn three things. You learn to think on the spot, so you need to be analytical. The second is that you need to speak in a bigger group, so you're getting more and more familiar with talking in front of people. And the third is that you're learning better when you're thinking of things, then talk about it, and then someone else has a view on it. And so I feel like this is something that education can give you and is already giving you. But what, at least from my perspective, needs to change in a bit is this classical format of, okay, I learn a lot of points on the slide, and then I have it in like the finals, for example, because those things are important to learn. You need to learn. We all know it. I feel like learning is really individual. At least having had the pain of having 3 finals in 1 week is something that is also great, at least for a time, to develop a character. But it needs to be more in the modern age, because we are not writing by hand. So, for example, if you now study law in Germany, you're still writing everything by hand. Then you're basically not allowed to use tools in most of the classes. So in the classical workspace, you're not in an isolated environment where you don't have like perks, like, for example, Claude Code or ChatGPT. So why not have it in the exam? And then you can also have like a lot higher expectation of what students can do and need to do, because you need to be creative. Okay, I'm under time pressure. How can I solve this problem under time pressure with the tools that I have? Some are maybe really great in writing something out of their head, and that is like the perfect foundation. But also those people could then use Claude Code, take the chatbot box, work out what they've written, and have like an even better example. And then there are maybe people that are not so great in writing something on a blank page. They can spare with the code, with Claude Code, and then have like the answer. So maybe that's something that just when talking about it and then thinking a bit more about it, is that maybe could change and bring education on another level, and maybe in the 20th.
I think that's a really good point. How all the tools find integration, because they will eventually find integration of it. And I think to some extent, when I was going to university, lots of things we learned were quite not so useful. But I remember a colleague of mine when I started working, and I don't know, I was bitching about, university. Why do you need to spend time in university? And he said, there's one fundamental thing that the university is teaching you, and it's critical thinking. It's processing, structural thinking, synthesizing information, processing information, analytical thinking, developing certain methodologies, how you approach problem solving. It's more about what other things you're doing that are enabling you now to come into the business and to be able to ask the right question. So I guess now we have a transition and a shift. And to some extent, it's very similar, because you also need to be smart enough to ask the right questions and to give the right prompting to have the proper conversation and an effective conversation with Claude, ChatGPT, whatever you're using. Right? Otherwise, it's going to give you poo-poo. Whatever. I mean, it's Shishu principle, as I always call it, shit in, shit out. So there is an element that you also need to start training people into how to effectively use those tools, and not just, ask for simple math answers like my daughter does sometimes. And I can literally hear her next door where she's asking Claude how to solve equations in math. Really? So I think, and then the second element is, again, I am, all my academical life was in Germany. And I thought Germans were always disadvantaged versus Americans, because I worked then after that, the American companies, because Americans do a lot of debating, a lot of discussing, a lot of project assignment work where you have to think and then you have to present. So by the time they enter the workforce, they're a lot more comfortable, a lot more eloquent, aside from the language barrier. But even that, they're a lot more articulate how they present the problem. They give context, they give background, they describe the problem, they give the solution, they give the recommendation. And Germans have to keep up, because the education system is, you sit, you listen, you go to test, you deliver the knowledge, you get a grade, good, bad, done. And I feel like this is changing, or has changed a lot versus what I experienced 25 years ago. And it's necessary, for sure. Does that resonate?
Yes and no. So I feel like the German education system is clearly out of age. So we're having the same educational system since like 150 years, I guess. But there's something positive about it. And it's that, at least when I went to school, it's now also a few years ago, if you have great teachers, so that's the asterisk there, if you have great teachers, you really learn a lot. So I had an amazing teacher in mathematics, and he, to be fair, he picked out the cohort of my year that were all really great in math. And then he said, okay, we have like this specific kind of exam at the end. So at the Abitur in mathematics, you all write more or less the same exam in the whole state. And he was like, okay, I know that we have this, but we won't learn for this exam in the 2 first years of Oberstufe. And then we really made like great things in the class. So he really drove a cohort of people that were interested in math in a direction that they really had, like, then after that, a clear understanding of what is really important. We had like a lot more knowledge than we needed for this like last exam then. And I feel like there are also 2 or 3 people out of this 14 people class that actually studied mathematics, and I also thought about doing it. So if you have the right teachers, then the system is still really in place. But I also feel like there's missing a bit of this presentations, debating, but I'm not quite sure if it's not already in the schools. And then maybe going more into the education on side of the universities, I feel like it's also a problem of the cohorts. So, for example, I had the opportunity to study at a private school, and there are a lot of great people. And for example, I met Julius WHU, and he's super ambitious. He's like one of the greatest people I've met, and he's pushing me out of my comfort zone. He's pushing me to do great things, and that's because I'm here basically, but also why I'm doing so much. And then yesterday I've attended a class of my girlfriend. She's also studying business administration, but at Uni Mainz, and the cohort there was not so into like talking with their teacher. So the teacher tried to really bring in a conversation, and the people haven't talked. So I was the person that was involved in this conversation because I felt like, okay, the professor is asking something, so anyone has to answer. And then I guess 3 times I was like waiting 2 minutes, no one has raised their hand. So I then said, okay, maybe this and that. So I feel like it's not only the educational side, it's also how we approach education and in what cohort we are. I'm not saying that everyone needs to pay a lot for his education. I just would say that we need to be open to try to talk more. Also as Germans, even though we do something wrong, it's okay, because the idea is that you say something that is maybe not 100% correct, but then someone else can jump into it. And therefore, I really don't like to say the German educational system is bad, because at least for me it was great, but I also don't want to say it's great, because for different people different things work. And if we look at the new generation of people that are, or children and kids are coming into school and they have different needs, then the new work spaces that we are in, it needs different things that we are currently not learning maybe.
Yeah.
So there's clearly something that needs to be changed, but there are also great things that I feel that are amazing. For example, I had also the opportunity to be in the United States at the University of Michigan. So I loved how there was like this debating, this presenting. The teachers were great. They were super open to talk with you as a student. But what I felt like that the undergrad courses were relatively easy. The people were not that ambitious in comparison to my German classmates at WHU. Maybe it's also because the cohort at WHU is really ambitious, but I feel like that the German school system is really pushing you in a direction that you are really knowledgeable, that you have like a broad understanding of what is going on. And so there's clearly something that needs to be changed, but I don't like that everything's bad in the German educational system.
I don't think it's good or bad. I think how much does the system evolve, and does the system evolve enough? I think that's the right question. There is also a realization, probably some countries, Germany is certainly one of them, a lot more emphasis is put into academics. And I see that with my daughter who was in the UK, IB school. The learning was very different to the same school, by the way, like same family of school, IB school in Greece. A lot more emphasis on academic versus project work, assignment work, group work, a lot less emphasis there, a lot less how you learn, and a lot more emphasis on what you learn. One is good, the other one is also good. It just stimulates very different things. When you enter business world, people who have it, I mean, you have to have a basic level of smarts, right? Like you have to be smart if you want to be successful. So let's assume that is a given. People have it easier who learned how to articulate themselves, how to put things into, how to synthesize things, how to solve problems, how to work with others, and they're not collaborating. One is lazy, the other one is uber ambitious, the third one doesn't want to align. Like all of those things, the earlier you can get used to them and understand how you operate within, the easier it is for you to integrate into the corporate world. It's a whole different universe. And we had a lengthy discussion with Julius, who was here also on the podcast, corporate versus startups versus venture capital, a whole different universe. But he works a lot with startups, right? very different things you learn. Well, two different worlds, and none of them is right or wrong. It's just very different. But I want to double click on two things. And that was triggered by the very first answer to the very first question, which was, do you see yourself as a leader? And you said, no, I try to become a leader. And I disagree with that. And here's why. You founded Capital Architecture. And what was the motivation for you to do that?
So basically the goal is to educate the broader investor with knowledge that is out there in academia and in wealth management. So when working in consulting at Allianz Global Investors at asset management and being at a great German university, I've seen a lot of theory that is not that broadly talked about in public. So, for example, we in Germany are really knowledgeable when it comes to debt and everything that is not we owning, but the bank is financing us. And we are not so knowledgeable about investing. And I talked, I guess, 3 days ago to Professor, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, Halizos, I guess it was. And they investigated that and they found out, by the way, the new article is now online. So if you're really interested in this topic, go on Capital Architecture. And they found out that we Germans are not investing, or one point why we're not investing is because we try to find out everything that is out there. And that's impossible if we look at the capital market. So for me, as an example, when I started to invest into ETFs, the first thing that I did was buying, I guess, 3 books. This 50 euros, I could have also invested at the stock market and try myself out. So I've read a lot about the ETF strategies that there around, so like the core, satellite, instead of trying out. I feel like that's a great example for a German trying to be knowledgeable of what he's doing. That is one of those findings. And all of this, what I've seen, I felt like, okay, there's clearly a gap and we need to address this gap. And that's why I founded Capital Architecture, to bring the best practices of wealth management and investing from like the top tier asset managers together with what the top professors out there are finding out in a format that is really nice to read, because no one wants to read like 40 pages of a greatly written paper, but it's just too long. So that was like the main idea. And when I'm saying I'm not yet a leader, I feel like a leader is really changing the world. So for me, Barack Obama is like, he's like my role model when it comes to leading. And I feel like there's a long way to go there, and it's brick by brick built this house of leadership.
So, of course, we usually look up to people who have achieved something incredibly amazing, right? And who, to some extent, impacted our lives. So, people who have interest to impact others' lives before, and you're thinking, how are you going to educate Germans on creating a better understanding of the capital market? I love the first article because it summarizes my husband, who is a lot into investing. I was telling him the article and he said, see, I tried to talk to you about it, that you are saving too much money, you have too much cash in your bank account, and it takes a 24-year-old that you come and you are having the enlightening moment. Okay, fine. Feedback is a gift. But it's something trying to change the perspective or giving perspective to people that is having impact and influencing people's lives, right? Yeah, you're not Barack Obama just yet, but I mean, he started also somewhere different. And now I'm going to get to the second one. And I recommend everybody, by the way, to go and check out Capital Architecture. The articles are really, and I'm not being paid for that, please confirm, Ole, but they're well written and they are not papers. It's very educational. And the second piece is that you're going and working with a Handelskammer on encouraging people to go and look at different career choices. Talk to us about that a bit.
So that's more or less the vision. What I'm currently doing is just being a lecturer at the Handelskammer. So just being a lecturer means I I have a class. We are talking basically about all the things that you need to do to become a great owner. So from basic things like how we can have like the sourcing of all of our clients to like building up potentially a CRM system. So if we stay in that client relationship direction, and the vision is that for me personally, I have the chance to learn different perspectives on business, and then the broader goal is to really make the Handwerk more attractive, because we talked about it in our discussion before we had this podcast. One hypothesis that is not really mine is that you can't have an AI that is building something. So we potentially have robots that are building something, but in the next 10 years, we don't have AIs building stuff. And the second one is that we need more people doing something with their hands. So if we want to have like a more sustainable Germany, for example, we need a higher electricization quota. I guess that's the right wording. And for this, we need more electricians, because someone needs to build the solar system on your roof. And to have those people, you need people that are explaining them how they can have, or at least try to have, a better business and be more efficient in their business and do what they want to do. And that's normally building. And that was like the idea. And a friend of mine did this or does this, and she asked me if I don't want to do the same. And now I'm at the Handwerkskammer and I have my own class. And it's really cool, because if we as business students go out and look at the world, we are, okay, there is something inefficient, there's something inefficient. But for example, in the Handwerk, there are people that are saying, okay, I want to talk to my client because we have a personal relationship. I've met this person when he or she was like 14 because I did something at their parents' house, and now they're 25 and living in their own flat, and now I'm at his or her flat. So, and that is for the normal business student, okay, that's an inefficiency if like the Meister that has like the highest payroll is at the phone. But for the Meister, it's something that is really important to him and that he feels like is really important to his client. And in between, there's maybe the truth. So maybe there are some key accounts that the Meister should talk to, and there are some other accounts that someone else should talk to. But that's, for example, one of the bigger learnings that I had over the couple of months that I'm now engaging at the Handwerkskammer with Handwerker. And then the end goal, I'm not quite sure if a German should say that, but the vision is to really make Handwerk more popular, go to schools. And we as Germans are told that you're only going to make it around if you're really going to university. But if you look around who has the cool cars, the big houses, and is on vacation lot, those are normally not the typical people that come from university. Those are either entrepreneurs, and I feel like the most Handwerker are entrepreneurs, because they're really having an impact, if we are coming back to that topic, to their teams. And yeah, that's the motivation behind that. And I hope that at the end of my life, a lot of people said that they have maybe talked to me or I influenced them and they became a Handwerker. I have a tough time to say this. For example, at my local basketball club, where a lot of young people, they are not really convinced to go into Handwerk yet.
Yeah, and tell us why. Why not? What is it that troubles them with that?
So mainly three things. So one is clearly their parents are telling them that they need to go to university because you don't want to be on your knees all your life. That was something that I've heard. And the second is that, to be honest, if you are having a tough time and then not really getting paid, but you're really working 40 hours a week, having the same things to do like your peers, maybe a bit less, not that fast, but you're getting paid not that much money. That's really also something where people are saying, okay, then I can go to university. And the last is that if you Google who's getting paid the most. That's normally not the typical Handwerker or the craftsman, I'm sorry, because we all know the lawyer, maybe the CEO, and then they're coming up, but that's harder to get to that point than to go and become, for example, a great electrician, build up your own company, because there are a lot of people that need you, and you basically can say, okay, then I charge 20% more and have a great life with less clients. And the clients that I have that are super happy because they're really looking for someone.
It's really interesting because probably the lawyers are the ones who, with AI on the rise, sorry, Ole, I know you are going towards international law, but they're probably the ones who are going to be very challenged by AI in the way information can be processed, and obviously judgment is important. But really, craftsmanship has been declining because my parents told the same thing. My brother and me, my father was always saying, "You don't want to work." He was an electrician, and he's like, "You don't want to work that hard. It's not the payment versus effort is not well balanced versus payment effort. Doing what we are doing feels a lot better if you have a choice, right? If you make that choice." So yeah, I think there are just two things with touch based where you're clearly having vision and motivation to make an impact in people's lives that is touching not the present, but a lot more the future. So for me, when I was preparing for this episode, like let me take a note of this when in 10 years from now we're going to read your name and you are a big fish in a company, I can say was on my show, and I know him.
Yeah.
Germany, Greece, wherever, any country in Europe needs more Oles, if that makes sense. Because I think from a society perspective, we're lacking a little bit ambition. If we look at Europe, we're lacking a bit ambition, journey, aspiration, vision, many of those things.
Maybe to quickly interrupt there, I feel like that was one point that I missed at my generation, because we are generation ambitious. We are generation, okay, we want to fight climate change. We are generation, okay, we see wars all over the place. We want to have a strong Europe. So I feel like ambition is maybe not the problem. I feel like it's more the leadership that we are currently having. So I'm not a big fan of saying, okay, all of those politicians are doing a bad job. And I hope that in Germany, there's not a far right party in power. But I feel like that there is a lot of ambition all over the place. And like in a corporation, if you have ambition without leadership, it's leading to nothing. And if we have ambition compared with great leadership, we are at a great place, I feel, because we are, coming back to the topic, well educated, and we have craftsmanships that can really build things. And that's also maybe the higher goal to this leadership topic. Maybe also one of my motivators to not have a Europe that is in free fall, or at least it feels like free fall at the moment.
Yeah, very, very, very good bias.
No, very
I hijacked the
inspiring.
conversation. Sorry.
No, very inspiring. And what I like the most is how you combine everything under one roof. I think this is the most amazing thing. Yeah, doing several things, but also the rationale behind and how you bind things and how you make them work for you. Yeah, I think this is part of the things any corporation would be looking for. But I think it's something that we must see more in the generation coming up to lead.
Very nice. We also give the chance to our dear guests to ask a question to us, if there's any, because we have tons of conversation. So if there is there anything you want the old people to answer?
Yeah, so basically two questions. The first would be, if you're looking now at my CV with doing a lot of different things from the corporate perspective, would you say, okay, that's great, he's doing a lot of things? Or would you say, he's lacking focus, definitely a can't hire. And the second being a bit broader speaking, what is your opinion on titles? For example, a master, a PhD, and then also in corporations that you try to become a vice president, senior vice president as fast as possible? Or would you say it's more important to have informal power via knowledge, via side projects? That would be interesting, at least from my perspective.
Very, very good questions. Again, the answer is a bit, it depends. On the first one, lots of things versus focus, I think it's always a matter how you frame it. So if you frame it, I didn't know what to do, so I'm kind of trying many things, that can indicate lack of focus. But the things you're doing, they're very intentional. So it's a matter of framing them because they're all stemming from a very different motivations. And I think they're demonstrating also who you are as a person. And what they show is that you think about you don't just jump and do some things, right? You're educating yourself heavily on AI, which I think is very relevant. You have a very specific agenda, knowing what AI could be doing, how to help people like yourself or peers or younger people to think about different paths than just go to university and study business administration. And how do you do wealth building as a young person where your parents, when they started working, there was a path, they were becoming wealthier and they were building wealth. And you came to the realization this is not the case for your generation. So you're trying to give back by educating everybody, not only that generation, on how to do investment and why investing is important. How do you structure your life financially as well? Because it's an important piece. So I think it's a matter of framing and what does it do to you in terms of skills that you're adding into your backpack and how do you build on those skills forward? So framing, if you just throw out things, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm keeping myself busy, I don't think this is the case with you. I think they're very intentional. It's more how you articulate that. For the second question, it will depend on the company. I don't know if it's still the case, but I remember I had quite a few friends who work in BASF. In BASF, it was very predetermined. You can only get as far to a certain level. I think it was director level. If you didn't have a PhD, that was there. Everybody knew it. And it was a rule. It was there. It existed. So people kind of knew if I want to continue, either I go and I do a PhD or not. This is it, and I will move laterally, but I will not be able to progress any further. In our corporate world, where the companies that you've been to, where we are FMCG, broad FMCG, titles probably your degree probably gives you an access point, and whether you have a PhD or not, it's not going to give you a higher or lower access point. Beyond that, it really does not matter. Why does it matter to me when I'm hiring that you have a degree? Because there is a certain level of education in thinking, processing. Again, it's more the structural learning that you experience that I know when you come in, you're going to be picking up things really quickly. Versus, again, somebody can be really smart and who hasn't done that and who has chosen a different path and can get there, but the risk may be higher that it won't. And it will take me more time to, teach that person all the things that you learned in university. It's the how the work is being done versus what the actual things that you learn. So titles, are they important for access, for entry? Beyond that, I mean, I still, there was a hype 15 years ago where people were going for executive MBAs, and I started doubting myself. Literally, lots of money. All you get through the executive education is network. And it's a really big price to pay depending on the school you choose. And what does that network? There is not enough evidence that people actually got more money, faster progress, yada, yada, yada. But faster progress comes if you have fantastic education, fantastic foundation, you're really swift and smart. Well, people will notice and you will progress faster because of that, not because you have the university degree. I don't know, Bias. How do you look at it?
No, I agree 100%. I was lucky enough, Ole, to to have Inga as my hiring manager in several locations. We shared a very common approach when it comes to that. Two things. One is a general observation. The second one is more personal. Inga is right saying that you need to frame everything that you do. Someone who is doing a correct job, a hiring manager who is doing a correct job, who is doing a stellar recruitment, will try to understand the context behind of everything that you do. Yeah. So why is it that you're doing it? You may be doing 1,000 things. If those are not connected, do not make any sense, then it's not gonna work for you in the process. If they do connect, then it makes a lot of sense, and obviously this will provide an edge within the hiring process. Picking up as a second observation with regards to the executive MBAs, so I belong to this generation where MBA was very hot. So I used for several years to look at the Financial Times ranking for MBA programs. I was determined to leave my job and go abroad and do a 1 year, 2 year program in the States based on, on my thoughts back then. So I decided to go to a very, highly ranked, very reputable university in the UK for a second degree, an MBA. So I progressed. I did everything up until the dissertation. It was then when I joined PepsiCo. 6 months in my first role, I felt I was learning so much that I didn't have the obligation to finish up the degree. And honestly, it was just the dissertation that was missing. I haven't finished the degree so far. Yeah, it would take me like 2 months to write an essay of 60 pages and get this MBA and put it on my wall. It somehow became less important in my life because I was learning. I was getting what I wanted through my role. Just my 2 cents on this.
Maybe then a last question. You just mentioned the Financial Times ranking. For me, and also all of my peers that have graduated this year or last year and are currently looking for a master's degree, I feel like there's a lot of masters out there having AI in it. There's a lot of masters that are saying that they're super great. And you already mentioned it, Inga, that you said, okay, it's your entry door. I have a really hard time, or I had a really hard time to decide for what master's degree I'm aiming. And now what was my decision factor? I wanted to not pay any money for my master's degree. So there are basically just Denmark and Sweden. If you're then wanting to also have like a master that is at least known, or the school is at least known. But how important is this? I feel like there's a lot of fear of people and that they are paying a lot of money to do master's degree only because of the reputation that is basically done by one institution. From your perspective as hiring managers, how important is this?
Vines Group.
It used to be important in my first steps in my career. It's not that important anymore, and I'm not taking out on what it means, for instance, to go to an Ivy League university in the States. There are a lot of people also from Greece where they invest 200,000, 300,000 euros to get an MBA from Harvard, from Stanford, from MIT, from all these amazing universities where even passing by makes you feel like, wow, where am I now? I'm not the guy who says it's not important. It is important. But at the same time, in a professional interview, what we are looking at is try to predict whether the person that is in front of us can be successful in a role. Yeah. And that a degree plays less role. It should be part of who you are and what you're taking out within the interview process.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever Vyas was giving me the long list of candidates, he would occasionally mention when that person, depending on the seniority of the role, and that person also grade school. I would hear it, but I would not really pay attention because obviously the people he would bring, I would have a look at that, and I would forget the moment he would tell me. I would forget about it, and then in the conversation, you assess the fit and you assess the potential, how far the person can grow, and there are so many factors that play into it, and school gives you a good grounding, sure, to perform, but it's not the school that's going to say, oh yeah, okay, Harvard, all good, already top of the list. I think that is no longer applicable, and I haven't heard my peers talking about that degree would trump anything else. somebody doesn't perform in the interview or doesn't convince in the interview, it's going to be hard.
Maybe playing devil's advocate for my own question, isn't it that you're easier in the interview if you're having your access to the interview is easier if you're having a Harvard MBA or if you're an undergrad from Harvard in comparison to the University of Freiburg, for example? That is a great university in Germany.
It is.
But
It is an amazing university, actually.
I think it's a good question for Vios, because he's going to be screening the people, and whether he's going to, like, very similar CV, the only difference is the school.
Yeah, it depends. Is the answer. So obviously, depending on the maturity stage you are in your career, it plays a different role, meaning practically that if you are someone who has 10, 15, 20 years of experience, the least you will see in the CV is like the university. Yeah, always good to see a great university, but it won't play a role because the person has taken the university, the skill set, everything, and he has built up the career. Yeah. Now, if you're just fresher, just outside of the university, obviously it will play a bigger role, but at the same time, this is not the deciding factor whatsoever. All universities, let's be all corporations, all employers will try to see and understand the skill set behind, what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, and I think also then it probably you want to understand what other activities people have done, right? So to your point, what was the engagement outside of university? Was there any engagement? Right. So if the person was just at a great university, okay, that's great. I mean, for sure, nothing wrong with that, right? It's still, there is a value in it. But if there is a candidate who has been to a university that is not as that's not as famous, let's say, but has developed self in different areas, I would be intrigued to understand and see the difference. Because at entry level, you see only education, you see grades. Okay, they may say something, they may say nothing. People with bad grades can be really great in business because they are just not good at academics. That happens as well. Or they had teachers that were just not explaining well things and they couldn't learn as good. There are many factors that play into it. And of course, that people are just lazy. Fine. You will find out in an interview very, very quickly. But I think it's a lot more than just, it doesn't hurt, for sure, but it's not a guarantee.
I feel like it can hurt if you have to pay 200,000 euros for 1 year in school. It can hurt. So then maybe if I have the time for one last question and maybe building the bridge back to your first two questions. If you look at my CV after talking to me now for a few hours from your side, Inga, what would your one advice be for me to have a great career, but also to become the leader that I admire to be, and that is to become a leader with impact and at the intersection of AI adoption and automation, small and medium-sized companies, and also this broader space of laws or sustainability, succession, something like that? What the one advice or the two advices be for me at this earlier stage of the career, but not completely at the beginning in terms of I can decide what university I want to pick?
It is killing me that you're asking Inga, Ole, but okay, I will leave this up to
I feel like you should have an opinion.
You will answer and I will give my 2 cents in one sentence because I only have one sentence to say.
Go.
No, it's my only thought around this, and this is something that I have not taken easily to say, is the fact that try to fail in your life. This is very, very important because it is out of failures that we get the biggest lessons. You don't learn if you're continuously successful. Nothing that you will add here. Yeah. If you fail, this is something you will reflect upon. This is something you will try to see, go through, examine, and try to get the learnings out of it. This is how we grow. Yeah, it's one of the best ways. And this is something I have seen in my own career, which is not the greatest on earth. It's a good career for someone who is doing the job I'm doing. You know, the humble recruitment part. Inga.
Building on skill and building with people. Because of AI, the biggest trait in leadership will be humanity. It's a big word, but you get the essence of it. Today, leadership landscape is very dominated by very smart people who very often lack emotional intelligence. But they're getting away with it because they're very smart. They should be really threatened by AI, and they should feel threatened by AI, because whatever their advantage was up until now is eroding. So somebody who is an empathetic person, who can relate to others, who is compassionate, and who truly cares, not because it's somewhere in a textbook, who truly cares about others and to have a positive impact in others' lives beyond work. And I think your generation is extremely well equipped to have that sense that whatever I'm doing in this context, which is business, also impacting people's life at home, with their parents, with their children, with their grandparents. There is a life outside of this, which in how we were brought up, nobody cared. I mean, of course, individual people care, but in broader context, it was not a point of consideration. So if you have that in you, that you care for people and you care for organization, you care for building with people, that's amazing. AI as skill is something hugely relevant, highly relevant, and becoming only more relevant. So building on that, but also beyond that. So how do you invest in yourself, whatever your area of, entry area is going to be? How do you build from there and you grow from there? Because you will grow. Like, I have zero doubt that you will grow. Zero, like absolutely zero doubt. And then how do you take people with you? As you start leading organization, leading people, big teams, small teams, it doesn't really matter. The moment you have just one person that is counting on you, that is depending on you, how do you show up every day when you had a shitty day? You still need to show up for the people, right? And I think getting that, and in the mix of that, is going to make you extremely impactful, extremely effective. And I say that again, I have no doubt that we're going to read the news and we're going to see your name. And at least the two of us can say we met him when he was 24, remember? And he was asking for our advice. So maybe something that we had also some impact on his life. My 2 cents.
Yeah, so thank you both for first of all for those nice words. I'm a bit flattered. Yeah, I feel like that is something that I then try to do more, to fail more, and to lead as a human being. And I feel like also from my short experience in organizations, the best leaders that I had have always been the greatest people in terms of being a great person. And so then the goal has to be to become a great leader. I feel like to become a great person. And I feel like even though I'm then not the next Barack Obama, which is going to be really hard and maybe a bit ambitious goal, I'm a great person. And I feel like this world needs a lot more great people.
I agree. You're going to be your own version of Barack Obama.
Yeah, and this is the most important thing. Not become Barack Obama, but become the best version of yourself. Yeah, the Barack Obama of yourself. Yeah, and the standard is not low if you put Barack Obama as a role model, for sure.
Yeah.
Shall we do the lightning round?
I've heard about lightning rounds, but I'm not familiar with your lightning round, to be honest.
This question, they're super easy.
And I think we can skip the last question, Inga.
Jesus. I'd like always getting invitations from buyers. All right. Your favorite chat channel. How do you communicate with people on chat?
Personally, and besides that, I try to always answer my WhatsApp messages, but that's really hard in some days. I'm so sorry to everyone that has not heard from me a few weeks.
You're a ghoster on top of it. Social media you spend most of your time on.
I would say I'm currently LinkedIn because I try to write a lot on LinkedIn. I've deleted Instagram, and we all should delete Instagram. Yeah, so LinkedIn at the moment, and I guess YouTube, because I'm a YouTube kid. I've grown up with YouTube. It's my television shows. So that's the social media.
You get your music from?
Spotify. Since I've learned 2014, so it's 20-year anniversary of Spotify, and they having a function where you see how long you're using it. Yeah, I'm since 2014 on Spotify.
I guess this is where you get your podcasts from as well?
Yes, 100%. And I'm a big fan, if you're following me on LinkedIn, of the Doppelganger podcast, also OMR, and of course, Young Blas at 25.
Bias and I were the only people who were not at OMR. The rest of the world was there. Sorry, the rest of the German world was there. We were the only one. Okay, physical books or audiobooks?
I need to read more audiobooks, I would say, but I'm only listening to podcasts. So in my free time, I'm listening to podcasts and then physical books. And then always, like, I love to shop books, but I'm reading not enough. I need to read more. So physical books.
All right. Your favorite AI tool?
Claude AI. So it's the most powerful and I feel like the most versatile. So Claude Cowork is like my daily EA. So I'm planning my day with it. I'm actually all of the tasks are somewhat related with Claude. I need to use it less, I feel like, but on the other hand, it's like you learn so much by using it. So Claude, and also here it was a bit of a political decision to change from ChatGPT to Claude. And it was one of the best decisions I've made because Claude is so much better than ChatGPT, in my opinion.
And I guess the question that Bias thinks we don't need to ask, but we're still going to ask it just to confirm. A famous person you would like to meet?
Barack Obama, for sure. And besides that, Jan Frodeno and LeBron James. So there are a lot of great people that I would love to meet.
And he's on LinkedIn. Inga will do her wonders.
No, I will tag him.
Yeah.
We always try to facilitate the famous
And
person.
it has worked in the past. Yeah, I'm not sure if Barack Obama will be.
I'm not sure. The Prime Minister of Greece did not respond to our latest wish, but maybe Barack will.
Obama.
So let's.
But I'm actually not sure if I would be able to speak one word. So
I'm pretty sure you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. I think it's time to say goodbye and thank you. Honestly, one of the best discussions we've ever had. Young Blossom 25 is everywhere. You can get your podcast from, including YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Until next time.
Amazing. Thank you, Ole.
Thank you, Ole.
bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.